Hey, Acers. Well, I know I didn't post earlier this week, and I only posted a little one last week, but yeah. I kind of came down, and you can hear it still in my voice. I kind of came down with a nasty, nasty, nasty cold. It's probably the flu, but I don't know that my wife would agree to that because she had it too, so it was just a really nasty cold. Whatever it was, it knocked me on my butt. I basically was in bed from Wednesday, a little up on Thursday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I got bored of being in bed, got up, came down and played, and was still so sick that I started shivering, shaking, had chills all through my body, and my fingers went numb. And they were all pale and pasty. Anyway, so welcome to the Ace Role Playing Games official channel. I'm your host, Mason Emerson, and I promise this year I'm going to try and spice up these videos a little more, run them through like at least something that I can put a my name down here or something like that, lower off to my, I guess off to, well, let's see, where did you guys put it in? Shows it's actually down off to the left. So if it's down off to the left, it's down off to my right. Yep. So anyway, this is the official channel for all, and right now we're mainly focused on teens. So we're focused on you guys as teenagers and teaching you how to game master and helping you to set up your own Ace Role Playing Games Club right where you're at. So if that means that you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul, welcome by the way. You can set up an Ace Club right there, and it'll be at one of your friendly local game stores, at a church, or someplace where it's going to be a public venue where we can attract more teenagers and help you guys as teens to get excited about and learn about the role-playing game hobby. You guys might have seen shows like Stranger Things or seen Critical Role online or something like that. Something where it looked like a lot of people together having fun telling a story together. While I can't promise you results as good as that, as a matter of fact, I don't promise any results. But I do promise that I will teach you how to game master so that you can be your own group and tell your own stories. Because I tell you, some of the stories that I remember, and your brain omits a lot of stuff. Like it omits all the, man, I gotta go to the bathroom, or dude, you've been sitting there for 10 minutes trying to decide what you're gonna do. What are you gonna do? I could try to talk to the monster. Yeah, why did you do that? But if I talk to the monster, it might turn around and just gut me. Maybe I should stab it. Well, then stab it. But I don't know why. But dude, it's your turn. We've been waiting for 10 minutes. Yeah, all that gets omitted from your memories of your games. And you end up with stories in your mind that are so cool. And, I mean, I had a character, and his background story was almost as cool as the story we told with him. Not quite, because the story we told with him wasn't plotted. The background story was plotted. And that's one of the differences between a role-playing game and a story or a book, is that a story or a book is plotted. Characters do things because characters are told they have to do it by the writer. Like, I just finished watching Wednesday. Good story. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the character arcs. There were several good character arcs in there that I really actually enjoyed, and I found really impressive and fun. But it's not high on my list of rewatch things right now. My daughter loves it, and it's mainly to her that the audience was written on that one anyway. And that's okay. And I wouldn't not watch it if it was on. But now I'm going to show her The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. And she's going to love that. And it's got one of the actresses who appears in a lot of movies that I see. Her name's Eileen Brennan. Now, Eileen Brennan, she is the lady who plays Mrs. Peacock in Clue. That's her more recent outing. But so also she played Miss Tess Skeffington in Murder by Death. I didn't actually see that one until my wife showed it to me. So anyway, the point is that in a story, characters do what you want because you want them to do it. And so if you want to tell a story, if you want to write a story and have all the characters do exactly what you want them to do, then the joke is to go get yourself a bottle of cream soda and a bubble pipe and a typewriter, an old Royal. There's one down there in the background. But anyway, go get yourself an old typewriter, go up in a cabin in the mountains, sit there and write your great American fan fiction. That's really what it is. You don't need your friends to come over and play the story with you, because a role-playing game is not a story. It's an event. And events are what you put out there, and the story happens when the player characters respond to that event. Like that, one of those stories that was really cool in the background. I mean, the background was, I had a guy, he was a son of a Scottish lord who had a beer magnate thing, but he was a quarter German and had grown up at his Oma's knees, and he spoke fluent German. And during World War I, he went over as a spy to Germany, and then he ends up being called into London for his first time. He's from, like I said, he's from Scotland, and so he gets called to London as King George is going to give him a medal for having served the country during the war. And the day before, he goes wandering around the shops in London, finds, and this is a trope, but it's a good one, the old spooky antiquities store. And it's a trope because it's used in so many stories. Now, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to have to make sure I make a note that I've paused here, because I might get distracted and forget to go back to this. But I'm just going to write a Ferguson note here, Ferguson. Anyway, he goes wandering around London to the spooky old antique store. So here's why it's a trope. And you may ask, what is a trope? Well, a trope is a storytelling shorthand that you use as a writer to get everybody thinking along the same way. So, for example, it is a trope that a person who sees a stray cat or a stray dog or a baby and bends over and pets the cat or the dog or coochie coos the baby, that tells you as an audience member, okay, this guy's a good guy. But if the guy instead kicks the cat or kicks the dog or pushes the baby aside and is mean to the mom, that tells you he's a bad guy. So those are tropes. And the spooky antiquity store is a trope because it says there's going to be something that's going to change the hero's way of living, or something in the story that's going to improve it. So, Robert Bruce Ferguson III, after having served in World War I as a spy for the British and helped to win the war, when he was given a pair of 45 semi-automatic pistols from an American soldier. Anyway, he goes in to this antiquity store, and while he's wandering around, he finds this medallion. It's about that big. That's about, maybe inch and a half, 2 inches. Anyway, he finds it, and he loves it, and he goes up and buys it, and he drops it. He's wearing his dress uniform, but he drops it in the pocket of his dress uniform, right in his left breast pocket. And then he buckles it down and kind of forgets about it. The next day when he's there with the king is giving the medals, going down the line, and he notices the guy, couple before him, is someone he recognizes. And then as the king's getting closer, he recognizes that it's one of the spies from Germany that he knew that had been training to go over to England. And his makeup to look like the guy he's there, whose identity he's stolen, isn't very good. And Robert's like, oh no, not him. And just as the king's about to give him, the guy pulls out a Luger and goes to shoot the king, but Robert jumps in front of him, and the first bullet hits him right square in the breast. And instead of piercing, it goes into the medallion. And then the guy shoots him. And then two more bullets go off as Robert's dragging him down to the ground. He's going to pin him down, and he's going to give his last ounce of living to save the king. And the other guards come and they arrest the German, and he gets carted off. And the king, as they're getting ready to take Robert to the hospital, the king just is like, he's a knight now. I'm knighting him. He's of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. And that apparently, from the little research I did at the time, it's the same order that James Bond has. And essentially it's given to those who have directly saved the life of a monarch at some times. But anyway, so he gets knighted. So he's now Sir Robert John Bruce Ferguson III. And no, John Bruce Ferguson. That's what it was, John, not Robert. So John. So anyway, John, he has to go through surgeries and have the bullets removed, and he survives though, and he gets stronger again. And then his father, who's a beer magnate up in Scotland, who had learned how to make German beer from his father-in-law, from his father, who learned from his father-in-law. So Bruce's John's grandmother was the German lady that married his grandfather. His grandfather was the one that brought German brewing techniques to England, and apparently made a lot of money doing it. So John was slated to receive the brewery, and he was going to receive it, and he really didn't want it, but his younger brother, I think his name was Robert, but anyway, his younger brother was going to receive £1 million sterling, which is a lot of money for those of us who live here in America. That's a lot of money, even back then. Anyway, and when their father dies, he gives them each their inheritance in his will, and John looks at his, and Robert looks at his, and they're like, not really pleased. And Robert's like, I loved making beer with Dad, but he told me that I'd have to work for you and be your brewmaster. And John's like, I don't even want the brewery. Do you want to swap? So they swap. And then John uses the money that he made during the war, puts his £1 million in a Swiss bank, and John uses the money he made during the war to go gallivanting all over the world, because he finds out that this medallion that went in his pocket that saved his life was a medallion of luck, and it had protected his heart when that first bullet went in. And then he goes all over the world, finds out about the medallion, and finds out it's from a book called The Black Pullet, and he researches where this thing could be, and it's got Egyptian and other mystical ancient origins, and he goes and finds it, and he finds that it's in 6 parts, and he gets the first 5 parts together, but nobody knows what the 6th part is. But he's got all the other information about it, so he keeps searching and researching and reading the book and using a primer and starting to get pretty good at the whatever tongue it's written in. And then he finally realizes that the hints are there, and he finds the final hint, and he goes on the adventure, and he finds the 6th part. The 6th part was the most sought after because it had a spell for immortality. And that is what he was after, and that's what he finds in the 6th part. And being a good occultist. Now, I'll pause there. The word occult just means dark or hidden things. It does not mean satanic or anything evil. So, because I was told it was evil when I was a kid. So, occult is not a bad word. It just means knowing about things that aren't part of the common knowledge. So, if you actually knew a way to For example, if you actually knew that where real werewolves were and were friends with them or something, or at least knew how to respect them, that would be an occult knowledge because you'd have to keep that secret and hidden. Anyway, so he uses his primer and he reads the spell out loud in English. And as he reads it out loud, he realizes he translated a word wrong. So instead of joining the spirit to the body to make him immortal, he joined the body to the spirit and made himself into basically a living ghost. And I mean, he's still immortal, but he just has to concentrate now to solidify. And anything he has with him becomes intangible, and he can pass through things. So kind of like Shadowcat. But you know, I think she was a big inspiration for this. But it was Shadowcat and also Blink, especially the one from Age of Apocalypse. She was so cool. So anyway, and I played this game post mission. The guy who helped me come up with the backstory is my buddy JC, and JC was a blast to game with. But anyway, we used all. He actually wrote the Hero the Gifted thing that I have. And when I get unpacked and everything, I'm going to scan that thing, and I'm going to also buy another thing of Vampire the Masquerade so I can print out those couple pages that have the celerity and things like that on it that we liberally borrowed from the core rulebook. So anyway, so John says the spell, joins his body to a spirit, so he now permanently lives in that in the world of darkness. It was called the Umbra, and it's like this. It's the liminal line between the physical reality of reality and the spiritual reality, and he becomes a superhero basically because he's now invulnerable. Basically, bullets pass right through him. So he ends up during the Second World War, partially because of his previous service, and now that he's got superpowers, he ends up going to fight against the evil supervillains that are causing the apocalypse and trying to bring down the whole world. And he fights with the Legion of Liberty or whatever. I can't remember. It might not be the right name. That might be the one from Hellboy. But anyway, he fights with the good guys, the allied superheroes, against the supervillains of Germany and Italy and Japan. And he is face to face with this. This one is called Apocalypse. This big, or no, Holocaust. That's what the supervillain was named. Holocaust. And Holocaust, he's got him on the ropes, and then suddenly Holocaust turns around and hits him with a low-level nuke. Or he blasts him with the power. I can't remember that part now. I'd give him a low-level nuke. Anyway, he hits him. Boom! And John, poof, gone. But the other superheroes are able to take John's sacrifice and beat Holocaust and destroy him. So anyway, they do find John's guns and his clothing, and they basically had been blown, or they've been completely blown off of him. And they sweep all that area, sweep together into the best pile they can, and they put him to rest in a knight's tomb in Scotland that his family had made for him. And he takes 50 years, because it was 95 or 96. It was about 96 when, yeah, so 51, 52 years. But he's still immortal, and he does come back together. And that's when he sits up right to the lid of his own coffin. But he does have to open it he does have to put his clothes on and get his guns and all that kind of stuff. So he leaves England because he leaves the United Kingdom because there's nobody there that even remembers him. His brother's an old man, almost dead. His nieces and nephews don't even know who he is. So he leaves the UK and comes over to New York City. And that's where he joins up with the superhero gang that he runs with. And okay, yes, I remember that a whole lot more. But that's because we wrote it down. Whereas the game, which involved our superheroes going up against an evil person who used magic, and he was and it was a mage along the lines of Mage the Ascension Mage. That's where he made the villain from. And it was so perfect. So much fun. We 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 just followed this trail, and JC told a good story. And that's also where I got introduced to and fell in love with Stan Ridgway and his greatest hits album. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's a good album. I have it on CD, but I also am going to be pulling it up and putting it on my Pandora list too. And then there were superheroes that were lucky and things like that. And as a matter of fact, I think JC did do one thing that was a little bit wrong. He had a character named Bon Chance, I think it was, it was Good Luck in French, whatever it was, or his name was just Luck Chance. But anyway, I think he made him a big part of the story, if I remember correctly. And that's something I would caution you against as a game master. Don't make an NPC that you are so in love with that they get to hog the whole spotlight. That is a big no-no. You are helping your players tell this story. So help them tell the story. Help them to find that moment of glory in the story, like we did when we defeated that mage. It was an incredibly enjoyable time. I spent it with good friends. We ate lots of good food. I think the adventure took over a year because we did a campaign. But that's the difference between a story and role-playing, though. So the story was good. But when it came down, so Stan Ridgway was the one artist. The other band was Sisters of Mercy. Their song "This Corrosion" was the final battle song. JC just kept it on endless repeat, and we just kept fighting against this guy and rolling and fighting and fighting and rolling and dodging and turning intangible and coming out and trying to shooting my gun that when the bullet left the intangibility zone, it would turn back tangible and it would hit him. And it was the coolest final battle. I just still remember sitting there on his carpet on the floor in the living room and all just, come on, man, you gotta do it. And I can't remember who finally dealt the final blow. I think it was our big guy. But that's the point, is that there are memories that you make in making these characters that you make with friends, because you have someone in your group who's a good storyteller. Maybe you're the good storyteller and you still remember making that character. Other times, maybe you're just good with the rules and you're able to give your players a scenario that lets them choose how they're going to resolve it. So regardless, you are there to have a good time with your friends. And so next time, I'm going to talk more about the contents of the Savage Worlds Core Rulebook. Oh, I had a sadness happen during my sickness. I was really bummed about this, and I'm still really bummed about this. I don't know how I can fix it. But so if anybody knows anybody who knows anything about repairing books that have been a little bit damaged, my book fell open end down and hit a bar down by my bedside, and it took the back and it pushed it up, and it ripped some of the binding on the spine, some of the gluing on the spine, and I'm like, whoa. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. To quote one of my favorite YouTube channels, which you guys shouldn't watch yet, but anyway, let's game for good, guys. I'm working on a new set of rules to help you establish your clubs and to establish the rules for the online Discord server. I'm going to figure out in the next little bit how to make a permanent link to a Discord server, so that way I can always put it in the bottom here. So that way you guys can bring your friends over and we can start adding more people to the Discord. Because eventually that Discord is going to be where we will have Mythos South Jordan, and Mythos Salt Lake City, and Mythos Provo. And these will all be the Mythos instances and club instances throughout the United States, throughout the world. I would love to have a Mythos Calcutta. That'd be cool. I would love to have a Mythos London, or even like smaller bits of London. Have you break that down, because I know London's a good sized city. But regardless, you guys are awesome. I love you. I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful that you have chosen to spend some of your time with me, whether in my videos or in the work you're doing to make your own club. I'll put my email address in here as always. Or you can, I think there's a way you can contact me through YouTube. So anyway, thank you guys. I love you. Game for good. And I'll see you in the next video.